Hello and welcome to episode 132 of Daryl Show Your Work. So what I'll be looking to accomplish in this video is to gain access to a WordPress admin account by compromising the MySQL database or protocol. All right, and so before I jump any further into that, I'm going to give my usual preface here, or preface this video rather, of my usual disclaimer by saying that this is for ethical research and educational purposes only. Any sort of malicious activities that may directly or indirectly come from someone watching this video, I do not take responsibility for, nor do I condone. All right, so again, my ultimate goal here is to gain access to the administrator panel of a WordPress website, in order to have complete control over it. And I'm going to try to access that by exploiting my SQL database. All right, so I've done some pre-recording discovery here, and I could tell you that my IP address is 10.10.48.2, and the target IP is 10.3.27.1. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to do a more targeted nmap scan of the target host, but I'm going to be targeting specifically ports 3306, which is a default port for MySQL, and then an alternative HTTP port 8585, and I want to be able to see what protocols, if they are running the default protocols on them, if they're running those, and what services are being run on those ports. All right, so to get started, all right, and let's move this over here. I got to wait for it to load. Oh, no, I don't. Okay. All right, just move this on out the way. There we go. All right. Tucked nice and neat in the corner. All right, so let's run that nmap scan. All right, so first a service version scan, and then I'm going to run that default script scan, which again, as I explained in my previous video, that what that does is takes some scripts from the nmap scripting engine and runs them in the background, and so it's going to give me a more robust output in terms of enumeration of the target host, and then the ports and protocols that is running. All right, and then I'm going to specify here. I want it to specifically scan ports 3306, and then that alternative port for HTTP 8585, and of course I have to give it the target host's IP address. And I didn't mean to copy that much from mousepad, so I could just let's just recopy that over. So okay, there we go. Okay, we're gonna run that. Should only take a couple of seconds. All right. So we can see that port 3306 is indeed open and running MySQL. And we can see that the version that is running is 5.5.20. All right, going down a little bit, we can see that port 8585 is open, and that is indeed running HTTP. It appears to be running an Apache a server, and it looks like a 64-bit architecture, and its version is 2.2.21. And a PHP is running that on as well, a version 5.3.10. And it also has a DAB. It looks like it appears it has a DAB directory. So my previous videos I talked about, I've showed how we can exploit webdav by running executable files within that directory to then gain access to the target host. But that's outside the scope of what I'll be doing today. But it's just a good thing to take note of. And then also it looks like it's running a WAMP server homepage. All right. So these are just things to keep in mind as we proceed. All right. So then the next thing that I want to do is, now that I know that MySQL is indeed running, I want to be able to brute force some credentials, so then I'll be able to have access and just be able to have legitimately authenticate into the MySQL database. And so I want to get a legitimate username and password pair in order to do so. So I'm going to be using um, an auxiliary module within the Metasploit framework in order to run a brute force dictionary attack against the target host and see if I could get that username password pair. All right, so to get started, I'm just going to start up the PostgreSQL database, and then I'm going to combine that with the step to start up the MSF console. Let's just give this a few seconds to boot up here. All right, now that that's up, the first thing that I want to do, as always, is set up a workspace. So I'm going to say workspace dash A, and I'm going to name this after the protocol that I'm targeting, which is MySQL. And then another parameter that I want to set up is I want to set the target host's IP address as a global parameter, so I don't have to continue to input that into each module. I may jump between as I conduct this attack here. All right, so we're gonna set that. You know what? Hold on, I think I should have had an S there. All right, there we go. All right, so that should be automatically configured no matter what module I use here within the Metasploit framework. That should be auto configured for me. All right, so now I'm actually going to look for the module that I need in order to conduct the brute force dictionary attack. So as soon as I spell search right, so I believe that tool is called MySQL underscore login. All right, and it is, so it's one of a kind, and it looks like it has a module ID of 0, so I'm gonna say use 0. All right, so let's go to show options to see what else I need to configure here within this module before I run it. All right, so we can see that our host is already set up for us, so looks like setting that parameter up globally did indeed work. And then we can also see that our port is set to the default port of MySQL, which is 3306, which it should be. And the great thing that I see here is that they already have a username set for me by default, which is root. So I'm going to modify this a bit. So instead of trying to brute force to find any username, password, pair, I'm going to just try to brute force for the password for the root account and see how far I can get there. So in order to do that, I have to set the pass file parameter to the location, to the directory of where the word list that I'm going to use to conduct the dictionary attack, where that's located here within my directory. And so I'm gonna say set pass underscore file. I'm gonna set that to user share word lists. metasploit, and the name of that word list is Unix underscore password. So this time I will be using the actual password uh, word list to to guess the password. When a couple previous videos, I've been actually been using the Unix underscore users um, 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 list just to be able to show that we're not constrained to a particular list despite its naming convention in order to run the brute force against a particular target. So we want to crack a password. We don't have to use Unix underscore password. We could use users underscores excuse me, Unix underscore users and still be able to crack it, just depending on what that password is. So just one, the differences between the two is just that the content of one is just geared more towards commonly used usernames. One is the other is used for commonly used passwords, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't have some cross entries there that may work well either way. All right, so but I'm going back to Unix passwords for this. So just checking my syntax here to make sure that I didn't leave out any S's as usual, which I didn't. All right. All right, now that I got that set, let's try to run it. And hold on, I want to set verbose to false because leaving that as true, it's going to show every failed attempt for this module to successfully guess the password for root. It's going to that's just going to keep populating on my screen, and I don't want all that on my screen. So I just want to for it to come back and just show the when it successfully finds that password for root if it does. All right, so I'm gonna set that to false, and let's get that running. All right, it looks like that was pretty fast and so kind of a weird output here. So we can see that based on the messages here that it actually did complete successfully. But when we look at root, usually root on the other side of this colon here, we have username on the left side of the colon. On the right side is the password that it found. But this time it appears to be blank. So if I had to wager exactly what was going on here, I'd probably guess that a password may not actually be set for the root account, which is really crazy to say, but it's a crazy theory, but I'm going to test it out. All right. So um, I'm going to split this terminal and then let's just adjust the font here back to the way it was so we can see clearly on both sides. There it is. All right, so I'm going to actually try to authenticate into the MySQL database here. All right, and I'm going to set the username as root and then password. I'm going to leave that empty. And then, of course, dash H for host. Let's give it the target host's IP address, and let's see what happens. All right, so it says enter password since I didn't specify it on that line there, and I'm going to hit enter again to see what happens. It looks like I'm in. So my theory was right, man. This administrator, man, he goofed up. So you don't necessarily have to have a PhD in cybersecurity to know that you should not you should well no account should you not set a password on, but especially the root account. So I mean this is basically giving me root access to the MySQL databases. So let's see what else is on here. So I'm gonna say show databases and then a colon, and this will show me what else is on here. So we can see that we have a information schema database, cards, MySQL, performance schema, test, and then WordPress is exactly what I'm looking for. So this kind of tells me, insinuates that what's probably running on 8585 is some sort of instance of WordPress. So in order to confirm that, let's pay a visit to the host, target host here. So I'm going to enter in. the IP address, but I want to specify what port to connect to, which is 85 to 85, which is hosting whatever's being hosted there. And it looks like we saw with the nmap results that it's a WAMP server. All right. And if we look here, we can see that under projects that there is a WordPress site here. All right. So, but I don't have any credentials here. So I'm gonna try to give these users the benefit of doubt, the administrator here the benefit of doubt, that the same logic wasn't applied to the WordPress site as it was here to the MySQL database, and that they just simply have a username with no password here. But if all else fails, we know that I can just simply go here and then and just try to access things and see if I can just do them willy nilly. All right, but if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to know exactly what accounts besides the root account was present as far as on this WordPress site, I could go into this tool right here, phpMyAdmin, and it would list out the users and their passwords as far as accessing this WordPress site. So let's click here and see what happens. It looks like I'm denied access. All right, I don't have the right permissions to access it. All right, so which kind of brings those wondering that may be wondering what phpMyAdmin is. It's a free web-based tool for managing MySQL and MariaDB databases through a GUI to perform common database tasks such as creating and deleting tables, adding and editing records, executing SQL queries, managing user permissions, importing and exporting data, etc., etc. All the things that basically I want to be able to do and will ultimately allow me access to that WordPress site. So I'm going to need to find another way in to this target host. And ultimately, what I want to be able to find is the configuration file for phpMyAdmin to to play around with some of the access configurations to see if I can modify some things that where I can then allow myself in. All right. So the next thing I need to do, I actually need to run. I'll probably need to run another nmap scan because the original one that I ran was very targeted, only reading two particular ports. So now I want to see what other ports are open here, and then be able to, based upon what information is returned to me, to be able to determine what protocols and services that I may want to target for any known vulnerabilities to potentially exploit and gain access to the system through that in order to find the protocol, excuse me, the configuration file that I'm looking for. All right, so let's get that running. So I'm going to run it this time the nmap scan within the Metasploit framework. And again, as I always have said in my previous videos, the advantage to doing that is it saves the enumerated output to the Metasploit framework. So therefore, anytime I may want to enumerate those, I may want to query those details, I can always do so. I could type in host. They'll give me as much information that I've enumerated about the target host that it has in this database. Or if I type services, it'll give me all the information about the services running that I enumerated up to that point. And the more detailed enumeration I conduct within Metasploit or using nmap or whatever means, it's going to start to fill in those blanks. So when I query it again, I'm going to get more detailed information. But that's a FYI. I won't be jumping into any examples of that. There's previous videos where I've shown that. All right, so just waiting a few seconds here. This may take a little longer since it's checking for more than two ports, like unlike it did with the original scan. So just a bit of patience here, and we should be moving along. All right. So just scrolling up a little bit to see what other ports are open and what protocols and services they're running on them. So we can see that port 21 FTP is open, which is always a solid attack vector to target. We have SSH running, which is ways that we can circumvent its secure nature, assuming that there's just as weak as a password policy as there is for MySQL. Um, and then, of course, we have HTTP running on port 80. We actually see multiple iterations of HTTP running. So it looks like several web applications being ran. All right, but I can see here that actually that SMB is running. All right, and that is related ports are open. So I'm gonna try to go and run the exploit that I've been running in my past few videos here, that eternal blue exploit, and see if version 1 of that protocol is running on the target host. And if it is, I should be able to exploit it. If not, then then these t- uh, then these three up here again, these should be means in which I can access the target host, and then to keep searching for that configuration file. All right, so to look for the Eternal Blue exploitation module here, I'm just going to say search Eternal. All right, and it should bring me up any relevant instance of that. So I'm not going to scroll through this, but if my memory serves me correctly, that what I'm looking for should actually be at the top of the list here. So I'm going to say use 0. All right, looks like it is. So we can see MS17010 Eternal Blue, which what MS17010 is, that is the Microsoft ID for the vulnerability associated with Eternal Blue. All right, so let's go to show options to see what else I may need to configure here. All right, the L host looks fine since that's set to my IP address. All right, it looks like it's going to run a 64-bit interpreter version or a payload of a reverse TCP a shell payload of that, which is great. L port is fine. Scrolling up a little bit, so I'm not going to set any user credentials, even though I have some. I don't know if the same logic is used here as far as root being a viable. Well, we know it's going to have a root user, but as far as the password, don't know if what I found is protocol specific to the MySQL database, or if that's the rule across the board. I'm just leave that blank for now, but it's something that if this attack doesn't work, I can try to set it here. And then we have our host already set globally, and then of course port 445, which is SMB's default port. All right, so I'm gonna say exploit, and let's get that running. All right, so if we look at the third line here, we can see that actually that this vulnerability does exist on this host, because it's ran the auxiliary scanner first as part of that the exploitation, and it has revealed that it's indeed vulnerable. And then we can now see the interpreter session that I've gained here. So it's bringing me one step closer to what it is that I want to accomplish. All right, so now that we have this interpreter session, again, my goal here is to download, modify, and upload that phpMyAdmin configuration file, all right, to ultimately for me to gain access to that directory that I currently is forbidden to me. All right, so to do that, I'm gonna do some enumeration here. All right, so we could confirm everything that we've seen from the attack, that, and then also from the exploit, excuse me, and from running nmap, that it is running Windows Server 2008 revision 2 on a 64-bit architecture, and that I have a 64-bit interpreter session here, since the payload that it ran was 64-bit payload. All right, and if I also want to get an idea for my level of permissions here, I say get UID. All right, so similarly, like I had over here within my SQL, where I had root permissions or root access, I have full system authority here, so which is very similar, and I can run pretty much any command that I want to run on this system. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want to go into the root directory of whatever drive that I'm in, and I'm gonna list out the contents of that. All right, so we can see the different folders and files listed here. So actually, I want to go into the WAMP folder, and there's actually two particular configuration files that I want to look at. The first is the WordPress configuration file. I want to show an alternative means in which we could have attained the credentials for MySQL. All right, so in order to do that, I'm gonna jump inside that folder. So I'm gonna say womp slash slash. All right, let's list out the contents there. All right, so I want to jump into the WordPress folder. Is going to be inside of the www folder. All right, so actually I have to say change directories and then www slash slash. All right, and then let's list out the contents there. All right, so we see that WordPress folder. So let's go inside of there, cd WordPress slash slash, part of my keyboard. All right, let's list out what's in there. Okay, so the file that I'm looking for again is this wp-config .php file. All right, which which I'm going to explore to see if we can find those my SQL credentials. All right, but another thing that you may want to take notice of is this wp dash admin directory here. All right, keep that in mind. It may not be relevant right now, but it will be relevant later. All right, so I'm going to cat out the contents of wp dash config php. Let's see what's going on there. All right, so if I scroll up just a little bit here, all right, to go down. There we go. All right, so we can see right here my SQL database username. All right, we can see that DB user is set to root. All right, but then we look underneath it, my SQL database password. All right, so you see how these two quotes are around root. We see those same two quotes next to DB underscore password, but they're blank. So that confirms what we found with that brute forcing module, and then logging into the MySQL service that no password is set for root. All right, and again, horrible security practices. All right, so make sure you never do that. All right, so that's an alternative way we could have found those credentials. Just wanted to show that while I was in that other WAMP folder. So I'm gonna go back a couple of folders and get us back to looking for that phpMyAdmin configuration file. All right, so let me just do a list here just to make sure I'm back in the WAMP folder. I am, if we look right here. All right, so the folder that we want to jump into now is the alias folder. So I'm gonna say cd alias. All right, let's list out the contents there. All right, and we can see here the phpMyAdmin.config folder. All right, so what I want to do here is basically I want to download this file, modify it. It's going to go into my local directory, and then I'm going to open it up and modify it in a way where I'm going to give myself access to that forbidden directory. And then I'm going to re-upload it here to the target host, and it's going to save over the current configuration. All right, and then from there I'm going to try to gain access. All right, so to do that, the command to do that, to download is pretty simple. It's just simply download my phpMyAdmin.config. All right. So to start modifying it, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna exit out of the MySQL database. All right, and then let's do a list and see what's in my current working directory. All right, we can see that PHP my admin configuration file is there. So I'm gonna use my text editor to open that up. So nano PHP my admin dot config. All right, we're in it. Pretty small configuration file here. So on this line, going past all of the commented out portions of the configuration file, these are the actual access rules. All right, so we can see that it's called allow override all, which makes sense because it's set up similar to a firewall rule where it has an explicit implicit deny, where it's telling us that um, that the order it is to deny all traffic, and then allow only traffic from this loopback address here, which, if you're local to the network, then you're going to have. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that rule, that deny allow rule, and then I'm going to get rid of the deny from all rule, and I'm going to leave the allow from rule, but I'm going to change allow from where, and I'm going to say all. And the reason that I'm going to say all, not instead of necessarily my IP address, is because I could use this as a means of persistence, meaning that, let's say that I want to use a different machine in a different location where I'm going to have a different IP address. So I want to be able to access um, directory from anywhere, from any machine. All right, so I don't want to just be confined to the machine and to the location where I'm at now. All right, so let's exit and save. So Control X to exit and then Y to save. All right, so I'm gonna hop back over here and let's put that back. So again, the command to do that is similarly simple: upload and then PHP my admin config. And again, this is going to save over the current configuration file, and then and replace it with what it is that I've done, what it is that I've configured. All right, and we're going to verify that. So let's list that out, and we should see those changes from the dates. Okay, so we could see how all these other files here, right? We could see how everything was lined up as far as last modified up here on the 28th of October 2021. All right, but then with the PHP my admin file down here, we could see that, well, this was last modified on January the 11th, 2026. So it's always indicative. It's already indicative of the change, but I can take a look inside just to make sure that those changes are actually there. So I'm gonna cat that out. So I'm gonna say cat my admin dot config. All right. So if we look down here where the actual access rules are, we can see that the rules the one rule that I have in place, allow from all, is actually there. All right. So um, before I can actually access it, I'm actually going to have to start and restart a service on the target host called WAMP Apache. All right, I have to restart. I had to restart that process. I'm gonna show you here. You would think that I would automatically be able to access it, right? But I can't. All right, so I have to actually execute the shell here. All right, and then from within the target host, I'm going to say net Then I want to be able to stop this. And the process that I want to stop is WAMP Apache. All right, so it says WAMP Apache service is stopping, and then I'm going to start it back up. WAMP Apache. Did I spell that right? Something doesn't look right. I'm missing a P. Okay. All right, starting it back up for me. All right, let's terminate this channel. Oh, I'm surprised it's not terminating it for me. There we go. All right. Now let's try to reboot that. And look at there. So I have access to the panel now. All right. So I want to remember, I want to access WordPress, but if we take a look, I want to compare apples to apples here. So we can see cards, information schema, MySQL, performance schema, test, WordPress. Those same databases here are the same databases right here. This appear to be in a slightly different order. All right, the first two, but there. So we know that we are seeing the exact same thing we saw when we went inside of MySQL from the command line. All right, so I'm going to actually go into the WordPress database here from the GUI, and then I'm going to go into WordPress users to see what users we have. So we have an admin account, a vagrant account, a user account, and a manager account. So of course I want the admin account. So let's go to edit here and let's see what's going on. All right, so we can see the password. If we see the username is admin, we see the password is actually has a hash value. So I'm going to change some things here. Let's change the hash function to MD5, and then let's get rid of this hash. All right, ciphertext, and I'm going to add a plain text password. I'm just say password 123. And of course, you don't. This would easily get you caught because, of course, the administrator, when they're locked out their account and know that the reason they locked out their account because their password was changed, they're going to know that that's an indicator of compromise. And so this is just for example purposes only. But when running an actual test um, or doing any sort of red team activity, that is probably not the wisest thing to do. All right, so I want to go back all the way back to that WAMP server homepage and access now the WordPress site. So going to WordPress. So if we remember I told you to pay attention to that one directory when we went inside of that the WAMP folder, which is that well actually the WordPress folder where we saw WP-admin. So that's actually the directory that I need to go into in order to try to authenticate. So I'm gonna say WP um, admin. And this is what's going to give me access to the admin dashboard. So let's give it my credentials that I've already just set. So admin, and then I'm gonna say password 123. Let's see what happens. All right, don't save it. And voila, have access to the admin panel. All right. So that was just an example of how by exploiting, when we have my SQL running with a web instance, how we could potentially gain access to the administrator dashboard, through a combination of several different attack vectors, given the poor password policy with MySQL and the Eternal Blue vulnerability with the SMB protocol. all right, I was able to get in here and gain access to the admin panel, meaning I can control everything here on this WordPress site, and to face it probably even worse than I've done in that previous video where I had to face a web server. All right, so please like, share, and subscribe. Most important.